Media recognition from Bloomberg, Reuters, recycling trade publications. Patented process for 100% recovery of critical metals, including cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, aluminum. American Manganese is focused on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. American Manganese trades on the TSX Venture, AMY, the US, AMYZF, and Frankfurt 2AM. For more information, visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Mark Leibovit, editor and publisher of the Leibovit VR newsletters, also known as VRTrader.com. He's speaking to us from Arizona. Welcome back to the show, Mark.
Glad to be here. A lot going on this past week, Jim. And I wanted to say up front that I am not a financial advisor nor give financial advice, though I have published my educational newsletters for over 42 years. So a lot of financial information in there, though.
Mark, do we still have a special offer for listeners?
We do at VRTrader.com. That's Victor Robert, VRTrader.com. And it's a 50% off any of the newsletters that you sign up for using the promo code 2021 half off, still using the 2021 promo code, and we're doing that especially for House Street. 2021 half off is your 50% off promo code at vrtrader.com.
Mark, what has caught your attention this week?
So much I don't even know where to begin. We had some geomagnetic storms today from the sun. Maybe that affected the stock market a little bit. Really, the bottom line for me here is you just can't believe any of the news and the financial or real news as far as I'm concerned in the Western media. It just ticks me off to no extent. We just hear all kinds of stories about what's happening in Ukraine and Russia and what's supposedly happening and not happening and what the plans are supposed to be. And we really don't know, and we probably won't know. And the markets are jumping around thinking that that's an important story, when suddenly outlier events hit that nobody even expected, including the Ukraine event itself. And I joke about, a geomagnetic storm. Turns out there's a asteroid that's sort of heading our way. It'll probably miss us on April 1st, which is coming up tomorrow. It's in some of the research. If you Google it, something is supposed to be if they miscalculated, then I guess nothing serious, just be the end of civilization. But anyway, there's one sort of heading our way, and in space-time, the distance is probably safe, but it is being flashed by NASA on their website. So, there's a lot of things going on out there. The markets, everybody got excited about the stock market because it hit a bottom in the time frame that I had predicted, the mid-March time frame. I'm no genius. I looked at things like the vernal equinox, which more than regularly coincides with a change of direction in the market, could be temporary or otherwise. So it tends to be a rally coming out of a mid-March low. We did get a nice rally. Some are hoping that it'll stretch out to the sell may go away time frame. Maybe that'll happen. We'll know next week. But we were short, and the market took a nice nosedive today for our educational newsletter publication. So we'll see if this lasts or we will get a little bit of a bounce. But the overall cyclical models are saying be careful. This is a bear market year, and it could get a lot worse. And whether it's Ukraine or again another outlier event that I couldn't even begin to predict. We could sit here all day talking about super volcanoes and potential food shortages and solar flares and potential, who knows, assassination attempts, polar shifts, all kinds of wild stuff we can dream up, and I'm sure it'll be something else. And by the way, today is the new moon, so sometimes you get little change of directions and oscillations around that new moon. So bullseye today, market drops big on a big new moon event, which might suggest that, within a day or two this might end and maybe we'll come out of a little bit of a rally. So a lot of stuff happening out there. And one of the other things that really got my goat here the last few days, and this had a lot of press on Fox News last night, and at the actions of the Walt Disney Company with regard to their woke politicalization of how we should address people, and whether it's girls or boys or whoever comes into the Disney complexes around the world. And I'm so motivated by this. I think I should try to create or raise money to go after the board of directors, maybe buy some stock and try to get a change of the board of directors of Disney, and straighten this company out, because they were sort of the standard for goodness in America and around the world, and suddenly now, the gays and the non-gays and the girls versus whether boys, and this is all nonsense and doesn't belong in Disney, and the stock actually dropped nicely today, and this continues, it might become one of my best short sells of all time, because I think a lot of families, good part, probably half of the attendees are conservative, and they're not going to stand for the nonsense that the Disney executives are putting out there. I can tell you a story. As 14 years old, I spent a day with Walt Disney himself, running around as a young kid, just chasing around the park and watching him, and actually got some Super 8 videos of him at the time, and I overheard a lot of his conversations. My brother's in the film business, actually worked with Roy Disney Jr., the nephew's son, on some film projects. And I don't say that I know the family or anything like that, but I've had contact. I've been on the phone with Roy Disney Jr. on a couple occasions for a short period of time in my career, and I can guarantee he passed away too. He was a big smoker like his father, but he was the head of Shamrock Holdings, I believe. In any event, I guarantee if Walt was alive, or these people that Walt Disney are making these decisions would be kicked out on their ass so fast that it would make their head spin. And if I could be in that boardroom and kick them out myself, I would. But it's an insult to Western culture. It's an insult to entertainment. It's an insult. It's an indignity to our lives. And I think something dramatic needs to be done, because a company like this, sets standards which should not be standards at all. So anyway, that really got my goat, and I may be working hard to overturn the Disney board indirectly in my own subtle ways, whatever that might be. But I think a lot of people need to get behind this and put their foot down and change this nonsense, this woke nonsense that's crisscrossing the Western world, particularly the United States. So that definitely got my goat.
Well, I always found it ironic the Disney Corporation banned mustaches on its staff, even though Walt Disney had a mustache.
Right.
Yeah, so they have a history of doing stuff like that.
I mean, they're absolutely nuts, and there's apparently a couple vocal members there, and I don't know what their gender is or non-gender is, but they're making a lot of noise, and these people have to throw these people out and just say this is nonsense. This doesn't represent the majority of people, and of course we have seen the problem in our schools where they're trying to educate kindergarten kids about what their sex is or what their sex is not supposed to be. So, you got to stand up for something in your life, and these people have to be eliminated. I don't know how else to say it. We need to get rid of these people. They're bad for our country, and they're bad for financial markets, and that people stop going to Disney or taking their products or attending their park. Their stock's going to suffer, their earnings are going to suffer, and maybe that's the way you punish these people, is they start losing money, and then shareholders kick their ass out.
I don't know, my wife has always considered Disney Corporation to be, I don't know, not in a slanderous way, but always kind of something evil about it, about just how the way they get parents to part with their money to appease their children. And a colleague of mine, one of the national television reporters, said, I don't know why I just don't sign my entire paycheck over to Disney, because by the end of the month, my kids have forced me to do the same thing anyway. So why not just make it a quick, clean relationship and get it over with? And I also don't like the way Disney goes after child care centers or people who use Disney characters, to try to brighten up things, and the lawyers will sue your butt off. Because, look, it's got Mickey Mouse kind of ears on it, so that's a copyright infringement, and they'll bankrupt you, going after it. So they don't have much of a heart.
Right. Well, I can't say for sure because, he's not alive, but maybe he's frozen somewhere, like they said, after his death. But if Walt Disney was here, I assure you, none of this would be happening.
If you froze to death, would freezing the body allow them to bring you back to life?
Yeah, well, future science doesn't have the answer for that one. I don't know if he's frozen. He's probably frozen here in Phoenix. There's a big facility here in Phoenix where a lot of the bodies and heads are frozen, whether that's where he would be or not. But he was a futurist. The stuff that he produced was fantastic. I know he was an anti-communist. This is one of the reasons why he started producing a lot of films. I mean, this is a big part of my life because I guess of that day I spent with him years and years ago as a kid, but influenced me to a great deal. He was doing a Harry James concert that day, so I was watching him put that together. But the fact that, so many things that he envisioned, like Epcot, which, by the way, the corporate executives didn't fulfill for him. If he would probably turned over in his grave 10 times when they saw what they did to Epcot Center, which was supposed to be an experimental prototype community of tomorrow. Instead, it turned out to be a theme park. But he was definitely anti-communist, and a lot of the films that he produced, a lot of the live-action films, like one of my favorites, Pollyanna, and so forth, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. He started producing these films because the animators, many of them apparently were communists, and he wanted to get rid of them, and there were strikes in the studio, and he said, I'm not going to deal with you guys, so he stopped a lot of the animation projects and moved on to regular film production because of that. So, what's going on in America right now with the socialism and the communism, I just couldn't imagine he would tolerate it. I know he was part of that McCarthy era stuff, and people hate him for that, or hate the idea of that. But you want to know something? We got to get rid of the communists and the socialists because they're in the government, they're in Canada, they're here in the U.S. You got Klaus Schwab, who's a Nazi in Europe, and you got the George Soros. I keep ranting and raving about that, who's trying to make a one-world government and take away our freedoms and our money. What's Klaus Schwab say, Jim? You'll have no money, but you'll still be happy.
You'll own nothing and be happy about it. Yes, you'll own nothing and be happy about it.
Right. So anyway, Walt Disney, believe me, if he obviously, we're talking something, he died in 1966, so obviously he'd be a very old man right now. But in any event, he would not agree with what's happening by any stretch. And I'm sure if he came back and they took him out of the frozen, the cryogenic freezing, and he came back to life, he'd probably dismiss everybody in that company in less than 10 seconds.
Around 1967, Colonel Sanders came to visit Peace River, Alberta, 300 miles north of Edmonton. He said, I had to come here for the opening of this franchise because I'd never been this far north. I got to meet him, and he said, little boy, I got something special for you. And I thought, wow, I wonder what the Colonel's got for me. It turned out to be a 12-inch high piggy bank that looked like Colonel Sanders. But anyway, that was my brief brush with fame when I was a little kid. Then of course I'm in the media, and I've interviewed hundreds of politicians, movie stars, and athletes. And they're just regular folks. It's just that you know what they do for a living because it's public. It doesn't make them any better than you and me. We'll have more with Mark Leibovit right after this.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Mark Leibovit. Mark, the U.S. dollar seems to be on a real tear. What's the story there?
Well, it's like uncertainty in the world. Everybody's talking about, the dollar going to zero, and of course, it's become, it's become the target for China and Russia and others, Iran and others, to dethrone the dollar as the world, lead currency. But by now, there's a flight to safety, I guess, is the best way to describe it with what's going on around the world. Plus, as interest rates go up here, supposedly, the dollar strengthens because of the higher rates you would get by investing in treasuries and so forth here, whether that's going to continue or not. I had the opinion, we did this interview weeks and weeks ago, and I had the opinion, which may, be incorrect, but I didn't really think rates were going up very much, if at all. And if they did go up, they might reverse course because of an outlier event or some other, occurrence, and we could ultimately see rates back down again, even into negative territory. So that doesn't seem to be what's unfolding now. They're still predicting much higher rate increases, but, Alan Greenspan did this decades ago. We compared him to a New York taxi cab driver where they slam on the accelerator, meaning they raised rates, and then he slammed on the brakes and he brought the rates back down again. And the Fed could be doing the same thing, and they're just as incompetent now as when Greenspan was in there. So, bottom line is you can see rates go up, and suddenly 6 months or a year from now they're back down again, or even into negative territory. So I wouldn't hold my breath, but you answer your question about the dollar, I think just a temporary, flight to safety, and we'll see how it all unfolds. I guess when the world goes to hell, they don't want the Chinese yuan, they don't want the ruble, they want the U.S. dollar. I guess that's what history sort of teaches us until they dethrone the dollar completely, which many want to do. I think it's going to remain on top.
As much as the rest of the world likes to make fun of America, there's no country on the planet that can adjust, adapt, and change direction faster and in the right direction than the U.S. That's been the history for the last 100 years. Why change now? There is no other country that can just react. And if you had to tomorrow, if it was in the national interest, you would be in an electric car. The government would have bought it for you. But in this case, is it the best solution for the government? Because, take a look at World War II. You were a country at peace. You did your very best not to get involved. You still did. And once you did, you damn well solved it. Boom. That's the history of America. I said, when they make their minds up, looking as an outside observer who lives a whole 20 miles from your border, like most Canadians do, most of the population's within 100 miles of the border, you want it solved. The Americans are pretty damn good at solving stuff. And what's more, it's the natural free enterprise system that does it. It's not the government that decides this is the solution. The average consumer says, I'm not going to buy that. I'm going to buy this. The market reacts. Boom. Problem solved.
Yeah, look at what Elon Musk has created, for example. This guy, comes from nowhere, programs PayPal, and suddenly changes the world in terms of electric vehicles and where we're headed. And now he's moving into space and SpaceX and landing on Mars. Is it the government, or is it a genius like an Elon Musk, or in previous generations, an Edison, or a Nikola Tesla, or others that have been great innovators? That comes out of the kind of environment which is here in America.
Yeah. You take a chance, you take a risk, and you're financially rewarded for it. Now, my big question is, in troubled times, gold becomes hugely popular. Why isn't it $5,000 or $10,000 an ounce?
Well, the answer is simple, but nobody believes it. And an organization by the name of GATA, GATA.org, I've known Bill Murphy over there for 20 years, basically describes the manipulation of the gold market. He calls it the suppression of the gold market. And it's been going on for decades. And it's there's all these acts. The Gold Act, I think of 1934, I think is the correct name. I have to double check that. Goes way back. You got the plunge protection team that Ronald Reagan created back in 1987, called the Working Groups of Financial Markets. You got the Treasury. You got all this nonsense going on. Came and confirmed there's gold in Fort Knox. They go and do an investigation in one room out of hundreds or dozens of rooms. My opinion is it's probably been taken out of there a long time ago. It doesn't even exist anymore. It's been pledged or sold. In the meantime, there's a commodity market, the futures markets, and there have been legal cases against some of the big brokerage firms that apparently are working indirectly with the government, and they have unlimited pocketbooks, and they could sell the financial futures, the gold and silver contracts with nothing backing them, just cash in their pockets, suppressing the prices. And there's much more research than this, and you'd have to check with GATA.org. So gold, yes, gold should be $5,000 or $10,000 an ounce already, just based on normal price action. If a house can go up 10 times in value, why can't gold? So I think bottom line, it's a suppression. And the question is, will that change? When will it change? And we can't predict that. It hasn't happened yet. So, but if they ever can get the government out of the free market, the free gold and silver market, maybe you got to close the futures exchanges because they're being used as the conduit to implement this strategy. Maybe then we'll have a free trading market.
Yeah, the most dreaded words in the world, at least in the U.S. We're the government. We're here to help. Nothing worse.
I mean, they won't admit this at all. There's all this stuff. You have to check the research out because I don't have it all in front of me. But decades of research and anecdotal and other events that point the finger at the suppression of the price. So, why would they do it? Well, they don't want the price of gold up because it makes them look bad. I mean, gold has been the standard for centuries. I think it was J.P. Morgan. I don't have the exact quote in front of me, but it's something is the only real money is gold. And he stated this, back in the early 1900s when he actually bailed out apparently the U.S. government. They needed some money, and J.P. Morgan came in, and I think it was around 1910 or something like that, and he was quoted that the only real money is gold. And I mean, the governments know this. Why are the governments around the world hoarding gold? Why is Vladimir Putin a big supporter of the gold market? Has been buying it for years and years. I have pictures of him that on the internet of him holding gold bars and accumulating it because for centuries, thousands of years, it's become the standard in the world. And what happens to currencies? You see currencies, many of them go to zero, and all of them drop in value from where they used to be. Obviously, paper money is not the answer. Governments know this. They're hoarding it somewhere, but they want to keep the price down, apparently, for some reason, because they don't want too high a price to discredit their own currency. So I think it's a long story here. It's very difficult. Yes, it trades and moves up and down. You can trade gold. When it's ever going to hit these big prices, I guess that's going to come, Jim, when government is out of the way. When is that going to happen, right? Mm.
Well, of course, I remember Churchill saying, again, paraphrasing, democracy's a horrible way to run government, but so far we haven't found anything better.
I guess you're right. You got to have somebody in charge somewhere, but
I don't know. I love Churchill, the man of a million quotes.
Well,
I'm just reminded watching that movie, Their Darkest Hour. The King asks Churchill, "How can you drink through the day?" Practice. It's just a brilliant man. Anyway, Mark, anything on the cryptocurrency front we should be keeping an eye on right now?
Well, I still think it's a lifesaver for the planet in terms of what governments are doing with currencies and so forth. There's a lot of talk about which ones are going to survive and not. We've had a little technical rally start here, whether it's going to be delayed or it's going to be politically suppressed for a while. Even the government's talking about, U.S. government, about digital crypto and so forth. I mean, I'm a bull long term on it, and I just think, it's a refuge from government, from the destruction of currency, from mismanagement and so forth, and also because we want to have secrecy. We don't want the government looking at everything we do, which they love to do. So I think, generationally, I think that it's a movement away from government and currency, and I think the trend is still early. So I'm overall a bull, but the question is which one will survive. And I personally think, Bitcoin still has a long way to go. It's not over yet, even though a lot of the bears are saying it's going to go to zero. Ethereum, but there's also XRP, which many talk about as being one that is, I think Canada, one of the Canadian banks start using the XRP currency, if I'm not mistaken, on an article I read the other day. You might want to check into that. That might be one to look at. So I'm overall a bull, but if you're a trader, you're a trader, and it's like gold or, real estate or any other diversification, you might want to hold some because you never know. It could really take off. I mean, people who bought Bitcoin when it was $20 and watched it go to $60,000, the same thing could happen again, and you might want to have a little bit in your back pocket.
Mark, thank you so much for chatting with us.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
My guest has been Mark Leibovit, editor and publisher of the Leibovit VR newsletters, also known as vrtrader.com. If you have any questions for Mark, you can send them to info@housestreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard. Thank you for listening.
Comments made on HowStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HowStreet.com radio is a production of HowStreet Media Incorporated.